And we're live. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lulu Friesdat. I'm the Executive Director of Smart Elections.
And I'm Bennie Smith, Shelby County Election Commissioner and Technical Advisor for Smart Elections.
And this is the Smart Elections Election Protection Forum. And what a night we have for you. So we're really glad that you're here. We hope that you're going to stay with us. This is our election report card episode. And we have some good news and some bad news. So the good news is that the election went off, right? As we all know, and the results went in, and we didn't have an insurrection, and that's good. So I think the more troubling news is that we did have some issues, and we're going to talk to you tonight about some of those issues. People who had difficulty voting. We have a voter with a disability who was unable to vote on the ballot marking device. Monica Bartley is going to be with us, and we have someone who is a longtime election advocate who went and watched one of the audits here in New York and is going to talk to us about what happened there. And we're also going to talk about some of the other locations. Bennie is in Memphis, Tennessee. He's going to tell us what his concerns were in August and how he felt in November. And we're going to talk a little bit about Virginia. Virginia was that big governor's race that everybody had their eyes on where the Republicans won. They did risk limiting audits there, and we are going to talk a little bit about that and tell you about a guest who's going to come on in 2 weeks to talk to us much more in depth about the Virginia risk limiting audit. So welcome to the forum, and thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to have you with us. Great to have Laura here. Hi, how are you doing? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I will give you just some background on Smart Elections. Smart Elections is a nonpartisan nonprofit. We are dedicated to elevating election reform to an urgent national priority, which it absolutely needs to be. If you want to find out more about us, you're going to go to smartelections.us. And if you want to reach us, you can email us, contact@smartelections.us. If you really enjoyed the forum, and you learned a lot and the guests were really remarkable, or you really appreciate how we're getting into the nuts and bolts in a way that other groups are not, we'd love for you to send us an email and tell us what you really appreciated about the program. And if there's things that you want improved, if there's changes that you want or things that didn't work for you, go ahead and let us know about that too. We always try to make adjustments based on our audience. You okay there, Bennie? You settling in?
Yeah. I'm trying to, this light is bright. I'm trying to, Lulu told me I need more light in my face, and now I'm like this.
You're the star, Bennie. We have to see your face, you know. Otherwise, we're not going to catch your jokes because they'll be all like in shadow.
Fair.
Okay. So that's how you reach us at contact@smartelections.us. And while you're there, one of the best things for you to do is to sign up for our mailing list, because that is how we stay in touch with you and you stay in touch with us. And that way we know what's going on with each other, because that's really important. We always want to stay connected as a community. That's how we do public oversight of elections and how we teach each other about what's going on. So go ahead and sign up for our mailing list. And we do send out interesting articles and past forums for you to listen to what's coming up. We're doing a documentary series right now. So definitely want to get on that and stay in touch. The documentary series has really been cool. I have to say, I've seen most of these documentaries previously, but I didn't remember how powerful they were. We've been doing the documentaries every other Tuesday. So one Tuesday we have a forum, and then the next Tuesday we do the documentary series. And these have been really, really powerful films about different parts of our elections, a lot of them about election security. And the people who have watched them, I think, have been often blown away about how powerful they are. And we've had filmmakers there to ask questions and talk about how they got interested, fascinated with this topic. So that's our election reform movie night. And that is every other Tuesday. When we don't have a forum, we have the documentaries, always at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Tuesdays. Spend Tuesdays together. That's our hashtag there. And the next one coming up is a really fascinating film called Pay to Play that a filmmaker named John Ennis directed. And I'll just give you a little bit of a blurb on it. It's John was really fascinated with election security. He did another film called Free for All, which was about the problems in the 2004 election. And then he did this deep dive into Ohio and all of the money sloshing around, where he was following independent candidates to see if they could actually make a dent in a race. Could they win even without all of that corporate funding? And he really went deep. And I really encourage you to come along for the ride. He's a really charismatic filmmaker. So that's going to be next Sunday, December 7th at 7 p.m. And you can sign up for that on our website. If you go to our website, I'll just show you how to do that. So it's super easy. So you go to smartelections.us, and when you are there, you're just going to scroll down. Just going to make sure that you're seeing what I'm seeing. So you're going to start at the top of the page when you land up here, and you're just going to scroll down until you see that movie night, Smart Elections movie night. That's pay to play, sign up to attend. And that way we'll send you the Zoom link on Tuesday night. Benny is texting me. Why are you texting me when we're right here, Benny?
You can read the private chat.
I'm just like, I can't talk and read text from you at the same time. Okay, so God. I wanted Benny to talk about the 2021 election. This is our 2021 report card, and Benny is texting me that he is only going to talk about 2020. Why?
We don't have elections in 2021 in Shelby County.
You had no elections this year?
No, it's next year. This is an off year for us.
You just really literally didn't have any elections?
No, we don't have any scheduled. The 2023 would be our off year for municipal elections.
So interesting. We've already learned something.
Yeah,
so
it varies per state.
I really thought that every state had some elections every year. Here in New York, we really have an election every year, because like this year we had all of our really intense city races for like our city council and our mayor's race and all of that. We had 2 elections. Actually, we had a primary and we had a general in November. Very intense, heated races, and we had referendums on the ballot. So it's remarkable to me that there are communities that literally had no elections. So that's
next year for us.
Point number 1 that we've learned tonight is that every state is different.
Yes, every state is different.
Okay, but when we get to Memphis, you're going to talk to us about your thoughts about what happened in 2020 there.
Well, yeah, because I can always relate them to what we're doing now.
Okay, so we're gonna
elections everywhere, so now I can see what works and what doesn't, and apply it to the policy.
Okay, so we'll get to that on the back half of the show. So we're gonna start now with elections here in New York, where we have an election advocate who has been very involved in monitoring the elections and paying attention. And he went and watched the audit in his county, Rensselaer County, and what he found was rather disturbing. And so we're going to bring our guest on, and we're going to let him tell the story about that. So this is Chris Bystroff. Chris, great to have you with us. And I put you in the hot seat. There you go.
Hi, Chris. I love the light. Lulu must
love being in the hot seat. Yeah, I've got lots of light on me.
Yeah. See, Benny?
I'm sure Lulu set that up for you.
Chris came with his face well lit. He brought his lighting to the table, so I'm sure you can learn from that.
Yeah, I gotta work on mine.
We're trying to shine light on things.
I like it.
Exactly. And Benny, we always want to see Benny. So I just want to give people a little bit of background about you, Chris. So Chris is a professor of biology and computer science at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. And he also, I have to give him the hat tip, he was the one who started the Smart Elections Election Protection Forum. He said to me, Lulu, I want you to do a forum. He was working with the Albany Green Sanctuary team.
Universalist Society.
Yes. Unitarian Universalist Society. I don't think we have the banner for that, but the Green Sanctuary team there. And they were really interested in this topic. And you want to just tell us a little bit about how you got so interested, Chris?
Oh, I've been interested for quite a long time, since 2004 and the Kerry versus Bush, the exit poll fiasco there. And so I've been reading books about it. And at some point, I gave a talk on this subject to the Unitarian Universalist Society. And and then your thing kind of sprung out of that. We were searching for somebody to do another forum who was, more into it than I am. And you did it, and thank you very much. And thank you for keeping it going. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really great. And we've actually done forums every other week since then. We haven't. I think we took one break for about 3 weeks, but for the most part, we've had a forum every other week since you started it.
Yeah.
So thanks so much for your.
I gotta pay homage to you, Chris. I didn't know that. That's a fact for me.
Yeah.
So, and for people who may not know what Chris is referring to when he says that 2004 exit poll fiasco, in the 2004 presidential election, there were sharp disparities between the exit polls, which showed that Kerry had won in quite a few states, enough states to win the election, and the results that came out, which showed him losing in those states and losing the election. And so there was a great deal of concern about it. That was one of the first times that it had been so noticeable. Exit polls prior to that had been fairly accurate. And so people to this day are mystified by what happened there and how the exit polls have continued since that time to be off. And many people have associated that with the advent of the electronic voting machines, which came in 2 years before that, 2002, and started to be implemented around the country. So the question really became, were the exit polls off and the results accurate, or were the exit polls accurate and it was the results that were wrong because of this new electronic voting machine? And was that the concern that you had, Chris?
Well, my real concern is nobody's asking that question. What the mainstream media does is automatically blame the exit polls. It's amazingly automatic. They just assume that the exit polls are off.
And the exit polls are actually adjusted after the election. They adjust the exit polls to match the election results.
Right. And so for most people, you never saw the raw exit polls unless you were watching them as they were being put on the screen by CNN,
right,
before they were adjusted, which is after the tally came in.
I have shots of that from the 2016 election here in New York. The exit polls immediately after the polls closed at 9 o'clock said that Bernie Sanders had lost the primary in 2016 here in New York City by 4%. And then within 5 minutes, they had adjusted it. And they said that Bernie Sanders had lost the race by 16%, 12% difference in 5 minutes. It was very unsettling.
Yeah, and people are not really educated in statistics, so they don't understand how incredibly unlikely it is to be off by that much.
It was disturbing.
Yeah.
So you took your interest and you did a lot more of it than most people. Many people are sort of curious about elections, but you actually went and started watching audits, and you went and watched this audit in 2016 in your county, in Rensselaer County.
Yeah, I didn't watch it. I went afterwards and I got the audit sheets, and I looked at those, and they looked strange. I think you have some slides.
I do have some slides, yeah. So we're going to show that. So tell us a little bit about what was, going to the audit and what you saw there.
Okay, so the first thing is that it's hard to determine when the audit is going to happen in New York. They're only really obligated to inform the candidates that are on the ballot for that election. And so I didn't know when it was going to happen. So of course I showed up. I showed up early once. I showed up late, and only in this recent election did I succeed in finding out when they were going to do the audit, and that's by going through one of the candidates on the ballot. And so in all the other audits that I've done, it's just been looking at the audit sheets and asking questions to the commissioners. So.
And I will say that Chris is not alone in that. So multiple times I have tried to go and watch the audit, and that just is not uncommon for it to be, there's just apparently this kind of dodge that the election officials have. I am not the only one who's experienced this. I remember I went 1 year and tried to watch, and I went at the appointed time. I found out the time, which, as Chris said, is difficult to do. They don't really advertise it that well. And I said, I'm here to watch the audit. And that was on a Friday. And they said, oh, you know what? We're really not getting started yet. Nothing's going on. Why don't you come back on Monday? And so on Monday, I called to say, hey, when are you getting started? And they said, oh, actually, we audited over the weekend. So
the exact same thing happened to me.
Right, and we're in two different counties. I'm in Kings County in Brooklyn, downstate, and he's in Rensselaer County, upstate. So this
Right.
is a sort of, yeah, this is a not uncommon sort of technique to keep people from watching these audits.
It seems like that.
Something, okay. I mean, Benny, are you guys auditing in Memphis County?
We DREs. There can be no.
Oh, you can't audit DREs.
There can be no audits.
Do they pretend to audit them?
No. Well, yeah. So what we have is so ours is a lot more binding. You know, we're supposed to compare the poll tapes to the tally results, and we are supposed to do it with every tape in every race.
And do they do it?
We have an auditing firm that comes and audits the process, and they basically issue a report that says we looked and we didn't see any controls missing, which is somebody handing a bag to somebody else to count. It's just really the procedure of running the election that they audit. So it's that's why I've always voted no for every certification.
But do they actually go through and compare every poll tape to the results?
No.
They do not.
No, that's why I took a picture of a poll tape.
I understand, but now that you're actually an election commissioner,
No, that's why I vote no for every certification election.
and they don't allow you to go and compare the poll tapes to the certified results?
No, I could probably push a little bit harder to get access to the poll tapes, but it's really hard.
How hard is it, and why is it hard?
Yeah, if you got 60 races and you try to do that times 177 precincts, it's not a job for one guy.
But couldn't you say this is our job? I mean, it's in the law that they're supposed to do that, right?
Yeah, but I'm just one commissioner, so I just say we didn't do that, so I vote no.
And are there any other commissioners that are supporting you that also think that you should be doing what the law says?
No.
You're the only commissioner who's asking for that in Shelby County, Tennessee.
Yep.
Right. So this is what we're faced with, folks. This is and audits really, I have to say, I was talking to Chris earlier and I said, I wish that we called them something besides audits. I actually wish that we called them magic butterflies. That's the that's what I would prefer that we call the audits, because people might be interested and intrigued by them. But instead we call them audits, which is sort of this horrible thing that we all cringe about because it's associated with the IRS. But audits are really important. Audits are how we check that the votes are counted accurately, because we're voting on machines. They're computers. They can be hacked. They can make mistakes. And audits are one way to really know that the votes are counted accurately. So, so Chris, you finally, and so now I'm going to put up the slide again. This is Rensselaer County, sort of in the middle of New York State, where Chris is. And this is the first thing we'll show is the 2016 when you went in there, and we actually looked at what was wrong with the 2016 audit when they showed you the paperwork. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So this is when I went in and, asked them for the magic butterflies. I mean the audit sheets, and they were stunned, but they gave them to me. And then I kind of I found out why they were stunned. There were a number of cases where the tallies were not accurately tallied, and they had the machine. You can see there the machine reading in red pen. I was curious as to why that was in red pen and the others are in pencil. And I asked if they put that in first, and they said yes. So they fill in the machine reading first, and then they tally up the votes that they counted manually. But sometimes it did not add up to the machine reading. In fact, many of the times it did not add up to the machine reading. And sometimes they just didn't fill in that box, or they put a little number in the corner. So I just noted that, passed that on.
And you can see that actually in most of those cases. So the hand count was, I believe, 232. It's a little hard to tell because the pencil was hard to read, but it certainly was not 263, which is what the machine count was. The hand count here in this race was 51 or 61. The machine count was 72. Here the hand count was 11 and the machine count was 18. This one it was 16. I'm not sure how, if you can still see that. The hand count here was 16, machine count was 32, and here the hand count was 19, machine count 30, hand count 4, machine count 6. So consistently all of the races were the whole point of the audit is to see if the machine counted correctly. Now, this was in 2016.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is in race after race, the machine count is not matching the hand count, which would indicate that one of them is wrong. It could be the machine count is wrong.
Or they're just extremely sloppy. But then if you go to the front page, where the certification page, you'll see they signed it and they've checked the box that says nothing wrong. There it is.
Right. The audit results confirm the electronically tabulated results. No further action is required. And it's checked there and it's signed. You can see that document, right? So then this time you went back, and what happened this time, Chris?
Well, since a few audits ago, they've stopped doing manual audits and they've gone to a scanner, which is called a Fujitsu clear count scanner made by Clear Ballot. And that's a picture of it right there. And so I watched as they loaded ballots into that, and they would load in a target page first, it's called a target card. And I asked, what's that for? And they said, that's to tell the machine what precinct we're counting right now. And I asked them if it's connected to the internet. They said, no, it's not connected to the internet. And I said, can I see the back? And I looked at the back and I saw an internet connection with a blinking light. So that was active. And I could not trace the internet cable. So, but I did note that on the wall of this same room was a huge router panel with a whole bunch of internet connections to it. So, no, it's not the smoking gun that I was hoping for. I actually went back this morning and asked them if I could now, because I didn't bring a camera. And I said, this time, can I go in that room and take pictures of the scanner and look behind it? And they said, oh, wait 5 minutes. And they shuffled some stuff around in the room, and then they let me in. And this time there was no internet cable connect to the back of either the scanner or the machine used to monitor the scanner. and they were really kind of pissed off that I was there with the camera.
So let me just break down a few of the things that you said, because some of them are a little bit complicated. So one thing just to start with is that here in New York, this is something that happened between 2015 and 2017. There was a transition, and it used to be in New York that the audits were mandated by law to be done by hand, a 3% hand count of all the machines. And then it was inserted into the statutes that it could also be done by, quote unquote, an automated tool, as long as that automated tool was certified by the State Board of Elections. And it turned out when we investigated this, it was the State Board of Elections co-chair, Douglas Kellner, who was primarily responsible for inserting this language and allowing the hand counts to now be done by machine. So now you have machines checking machines. You don't really have someone looking at the paper ballots anymore to see if the results actually match, if the machine count is actually accurate, if it's what the voters intended on those paper ballots. And one of the reasons why this particular setup is that Chris is describing is so problematic is that target card that he told you about. So I'm going to show that again. So kind of explain to us, walk us through why it's a problem that they're telling the scanner that's checking the results what the other machines said, and that's what this card is doing, right?
Yeah. Well, so I was thinking, if indeed this machine's connected to the internet, then it can talk to some software somewhere that could be communicating to that machine how the hack went down. Basically, if there was a hack and they knew what machine had done what to the votes, that information, if it was connected to the internet, could now be transmitted to the auditing machine, and then they would have the ability to reproduce the hack and give you numbers that are consistent with the numbers that were recorded on the poll tape. And so I can't say that was done, only that there was opportunity for there to. So that was an ability, an opportunity to cheat. Can't prove that it was actually cheating, but there was an opportunity there.
All right, so Lulu, I need to go real technical. for just a second. We'll come back out of it real quick. So, Chris, you talking about the packets, right? You're thinking that because that the NIC card is sending packets across. It could be a network cable too, but you're looking at that it is transmitting, and you're thinking
I saw a green light flashing. I don't know if that
it's transmitting. So you're thinking that somebody can get the packets, and then because it's a two-way communication, they can send the machine or send wherever the output is what they want it to be. That's what you're thinking, right?
Well, I guess yes. I mean, I was curious about it enough that I found the training video for the scanner, and in the training video, they say that you have to connect it to a router.
Yeah, it's got to connect to a router. Yeah.
Here, we're going to show you that video right now.
Yeah, so that reinforced the suspicion.
On laptop computer.
Okay, hang on. Let's start.
Each scanner must be connected to its own laptop computer, running Windows 7 or Windows 8. The laptop must have USB 2.0 or higher.
It's the orange cable.
A gigabit router is required to connect the scan stations to the scan server. You'll also need enough Ethernet cables to connect the scan stations and the scan server to the router. Each scanner must...
Yeah, so that's it.
The one with I saw the router, but why the one with the antenna? Like that's definitely internet. Like the other one is a router. That was just a port switch, right?
Well, it's possible.
All right, I gotta ask. That's just like a port switch, right? And the other one has got to be like an internet router, right?
I guess you would know. I mean, that you saw the antenna on it.
Yeah. The other one was the router, the port switch. The switcher was the one without the antennas, and that would control the network.
I thought something conspicuously missing on that.
Yeah, I don't know. You need to.
Yeah, they didn't say don't connect it to the internet. They didn't. That was nowhere in the training video. So and these guys, when I asked them who did the connection, they said Clear Ballot came in and did all the connections. They didn't touch it, they said.
So I'm just going to see if we have some questions from the audience, because I think the one thing that I don't think is quite clear when you gentlemen are talking, sort of your tech talk back and forth, just for your average viewer, what is insidious about the audit scanner being connected to the internet and then having access to the information of how many ballots, how many votes were counted by the first machine, is that the two machines are now communicating with each other, and one of the machines is connected to the internet. So it's basically like giving someone the answers to the test. It's sort of like, I'm right. Isn't that like I'm going to take the SAT test, but I'm connected to the internet and somebody is giving me the answers in advance of what I'm supposed to say. Is that a good metaphor?
Or you could just do it like a StreamYard, like it's a bridge line, right? Or a three-way call, right? You think there are two people that are talking, but there's a third person online.
Yeah, that's kind of the case. You don't know what other communication's going on.
Yep.
Okay, so this is very, in your opinion, Bennie, and you're a software developer who knows how to program machines and create the programs that could do this. This is a very concerning setup.
Yeah, the audit shouldn't be as rigorous as the machine setup, but if you're gonna see those two things, that you need a firewall. If I'm gonna see a router and a transmission device, now I need a firewall because I got to block. Their ports, right? There are technical things that I don't want. I don't want anybody to just come into my phone call, right? The three-way. If we just keep with the three-way analogy, this should be a two-way call.
But they may have a firewall. How do we know that they very well may have a firewall?
It's got to be in the same setup.
But it would be an internal software firewall. We might not be able to see that.
No, it would be a hardware cloud key, or no, it would be something different than that.
Did you see a firewall?
No.
Chris?
I don't know if I could recognize a firewall when I saw it. No.
Well, it would be another piece of hardware. I only saw a router and a gigabit modem.
So I think that's the next question to ask then, Chris. If you want to do a public records request there and ask for the documentation about their setup, and ask them for any documentation about all of the electronic pieces that they have for their audit setup, and let's try to find out if they have a firewall or what their setup is, and we can take a look at it and try to get some expert opinion on it. Are you up for doing something like that next?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's the most responsible thing to do. Like, it's not bad that you see it, because again, this isn't the election. This is an audit. So they don't have nearly the transmission rules. Like, it's not coming from some landlines or some tabulation rooms, or so there's not a lot that you would need to protect from. But it doesn't. I don't see the need to have those things. If it's a scanner and it's a computer and they write connected to each other, I don't see why you need all
the other thing that's really important to note is that they did not at any time actually look at any of the paper ballots, Chris, correct?
No, if there was a discrepancy and there were minor ones, what they'd looked at is the ballot images, not at the actual paper ballots.
Right. And that actually is not according to regulation. In the New York regulations, they are supposed to be looking at least a minimal, even with these new automated tools, they are supposed to be looking at a minimum number of actual paper ballots, but you did not see them do that at any time.
Can I mention how they picked the machine that they were going to audit?
Sure.
Yeah, they did that offline. I believe they're supposed to use some kind of random number generator and pick the machine during the audit, but they picked it beforehand. And I said, why? Well, they said, well, we're saving time.
Y'all gonna make John, if John Breaker on this call, he gonna go berserk. Pre-selecting audits. Yeah, clear ballots are really, I like clear ballot a lot. So I guess I didn't realize that they were doing this in Windows 7 and Windows 8. I mean, we're on Windows 11 now, so.
I mean, they said Windows 10. Windows 10 was an option in that video also. So I don't think it's the technology being out of date. I think it's more a concern that first off, we've completely abandoned in about half of the counties now the whole process of doing the audits by hand. And that's something that even in Columbia County, New York, one of the counties, they used to count almost all of the counties by hand. So we're really moving further and further away from that. And now we're not even looking at any of the paper ballots, and the machines are now connected to the internet, and they get the answers in advance. And in the past, they had gotten the wrong answers and they never reported that. So now we're getting into a situation where the audits are what we call security theater. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. Like, this is really, really important. Audits is where it's at, folks. And we're going to have audits going, around the country now after what happened in Arizona. And the question is, are they going to be meaningful audits? Or are they going to be security theater? Or are they going to be a partisan circus show? The way to have meaningful audits is you have to have actually meaningful protocols on the books, and then you have to follow them, and they have to be observed by members of the public like Chris, who are diligently going out there and doing this work and taking the time to do it. And Chris, I know you wanted to say that it wasn't that hard, and you wanted to encourage other people to take up the banner of observing audits.
Yeah, but I actually like security theater better than magic butterflies. I think that's good. Security theater. No, I just wanted to say that Lulu's making it out to sound like a heroic task, but it's nothing like that. It's very simple. When you just go somewhere and you stand there and you look, and even if you don't see anything, you're performing a great public service, because then they know somebody's there looking over their shoulders. They're less likely to do bad stuff if they know somebody's going to be looking over their shoulders.
Now, I think it is a little bit challenging. I myself have tried multiple times to watch the audits, and I've only succeeded once. So often you have to get a letter from a candidate or from a political party. You have to get an official permission, some sort of certificate. So the thing to do is to plan in advance, coordinate with candidates, or call the Board of Elections and find out what exactly they're expecting. If you're expected to bring a letter from a candidate, or what they're going to ask for if they want to observe the audit. And I'd love for Virginia Martin is here, and she's a former election commissioner. If Virginia, you wanted to put in the chat exactly what the statute is that you're supposed to have if you want to observe an audit. And that again would just be in New York. We know that all the states are different. And then I think we have to move on here. We're way over time. But Chris, thank you so much for sharing this information with us, and thank you for all your work. It's really remarkable that you keep following up year after year and bringing us back the reports. And it's just this is like real information that you're not going to get from the media or from other, even other organizations are not really following this particular topic that closely.
Thanks a lot, Chris.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Awesome. Okay. And we had a question here also in the chat that I wanted Bennie to take. Bennie, did you see this question? Matt Lucine wants to know, how can I become an election commissioner?
So it depends on where you are. In Shelby County, we do it by appointment. So the state legislature, based on party, chooses election commissioners. In other places, you have to run for it. So if you'll message me your state, I can look up the rules and tell you. I would definitely advocate for you to do it. I was a citizen and I was reasonably involved before I became an election commissioner. But once I saw that I could actually hit the ground running with some expertise, that's when I really decided to do it. And I kind of got recruited for a while before I was interested. So it's definitely a thankless job, but you should definitely do it.
Oh, and Matt says he's in Ohio.
Okay, I'll look up the statutes for Ohio.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll try to report back on that, Matt. And I have Matt's contact information also.
Yeah, Matt, you can DM him on Twitter too, Matt, and I'll look it up.
Super. So we'll get you that information, and anybody else who's really interested in getting involved, becoming an election
commissioner. DM me your county.
Being an election commissioner is a great way to do it. It's a really important job that goes. People just don't get excited sometimes about being election commissioners, but it's super important. Mm-hmm. So we're going to move on now. We have another guest with us that I'm really excited to introduce you to. Monica Bartley is an election advocate and works with the disability rights community. And she's going to tell us her story of voting in the 2021 election. So I'm really pleased to introduce to you Monica Bartley. And it's such a pleasure to have you here, Monica. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Monica.
Thank you, Lulu. Hi, Bennie.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to be here as well. Thank you.
Wonderful. So let's get some information about Monica. She is a community outreach organizer, and she works for an organization shorthand known as Sydney, the Center for Independence of the Disabled, New York. And Monica, you want to just share with folks, they might not be able to tell, but Monica does have a disability herself.
Yes, I'll just give my image description as before I go into that. I'm an African American woman, and I am a senior with graying hair, shoulder length hair, and I'm wearing glasses and a red and black sweater.
Super. And we'll do our visuals also, which we haven't done. So Monica's reminding me that for our viewers who are not able to see, it's really polite for us to just describe ourselves. So I'm a white woman with a kind of thin, long face with sometimes a smile, sometimes a very serious look, and long brown hair. I have a brick wall behind me, and I'm in a brown blazer with a necklace, white headphones. And Bennie, do you want to give your visual description?
She's in a well-lit area too. Yes, I am a low haircut, black male, standing in front of a bunch of computer monitors. I can begin to tell you what color this shirt is. I think it's like a light gray, bluish collar shirt.
Okay, super. So we've done our descriptions, and also to let people know if they are looking for closed captioning, we do have closed captioning on the Facebook live stream. And if you want to watch this forum on YouTube with the closed captioning, the best thing to do is wait until the end of the forum, and then you can play it back with the YouTube closed captions. So you do have those available on either Facebook or YouTube. So Monica, go ahead and just let us know a little bit about your background and your disability and what you do there at Sydney.
Okay, so I'm a wheelchair user. I use a motorized wheelchair most times. My work at Sydney involves advocating for people with disabilities. Sydney's goal really is to see that people with disabilities are fully integrated in the society, and that we eliminate all the barriers that they would experience in social, cultural, and civic life. So, our goal is really to see people living as equal citizens. So, my work involves advocacy in all areas, accessibility, whether physical access or access to communication, you name it. Once it involves advocacy in access, I'm involved. I am the coordinator of a group of people with disabilities. It's not just limited to people with disabilities. Friends and family members can also join. We meet monthly. The group is called Sydney Action Network. And here we teach people to advocate for themselves. So we hear people's stories, we listen to what their concerns are, and we address these concerns. For example, the subway was one of the issues that people had. They cannot travel on the subway like everybody else because we don't have elevators at all subway stations. So that was a large issue for us, for people with disabilities. So we took on that, and we have a lawsuit in progress against the MTA. We also do voting rights. We survey poll sites for all elections. We haven't been doing this since the pandemic, but that's something that we normally do. We survey the sites, identify the barriers, prepare a report that we share with the Board of Elections so that they can address these barriers.
That's
So
fascinating.
that's just some of what I
Yeah,
do.
you're busy. You're very, very busy. So, what we wanted to also hear tonight is your personal story. You went to vote this time in November of 2021. We already talked about how New York had an off year election. And were you successfully able to use the ballot marking device?
No. When I got to my poll site, the first thing I noticed with the ballot marking device that it was not positioned correctly. Because it has to be where positioned where you can vote privately so someone doesn't read your ballot from behind. So I noticed that and I mentioned it to the poll worker. And she said, I knew it. But when I checked my supervisor, she said it was okay. So I had to vote on it with it not positioned correctly.
Wait, so
So
you're telling me that they did not even at that point turn the machine around so that you could have privacy?
no, she didn't turn it around. But
Wow.
the only person behind was really her supervisor, who wasn't really looking. So I
That's
felt
a
okay, I
complete
could do it.
violation of the law and of your privacy. They are supposed to set up, they are legally required to set up those machines so that voters have privacy, I believe. Is that not correct?
Yes,
Are they
I
not?
agree with that. I agree. Because that is something that we would note in our poll site surveys. So I marked my ballot. That went very well. I did it very quickly. And then after marking the ballot, you should print. So I tried to print, and it said, there is a problem, check with your election official. So I called the poll worker. The the supervisor got her manual and she checked the machine. Then she realized it was a paper jam. So it took a while for them to clear the jam and reboot the machine. While that was being done, they repositioned the machine so it was positioned correctly. The poll worker said to me, "I'll just use this opportunity to move the
Might as well.
machine
Good.
around." So that was very good. Then, after waiting like about 20 minutes for them to fix that, and I marked my ballot, the same thing happened. So,
Again.
yes, the
So
same
the
thing
second
happened.
time, another paper jam.
Yes.
And I believe you told me that the machine actually ripped your ballot in half.
No,
No, it didn't.
no, it didn't. It was
Oh, it was just a
okay.
paper jam.
Yes.
Okay, I
It
think
just,
I'm remembering because Marilyn Tucci had problems. She was a guest that we had, and she had problems. And I think maybe it was, yeah, her machine, which was a Dominion, and the machine actually ripped her ballot twice.
no,
But
mine.
yours, it was just a paper jam.
Yes.
But it couldn't
Because
get did it get was it able to print the ballot out?
no, it wasn't. But when she cleared the jam, she was able to give me back the same ballot. But when it got jammed the second time, I decided I could not wait 20 minutes to get that out of the machine again.
Right.
So I went and they voided that. They gave me another ballot. So I went and marked it by hand this time. Now, I usually use the ballot marking device because I find it a more efficient way of marking my ballot because I have to do it too carefully. I don't want to go over the line because I don't want my ballot to be void or to make any mistakes. Besides, rushing, I may miss a race, but the ballot marking device doesn't allow you to miss a race. So I like using it.
Okay.
So
So
I
you
was really very disappointed. But when I got back home, I'm working from home, I sent an email to the Board of Elections, to the ADA coordinator there, telling her of the problem. And she immediately emailed me. She checked and emailed me back to say the problem was resolved because the coordinator got the technician to fix it. Before I left there, while I was marking the ballot by hand, I saw the supervisor calling on the phone, calling the technician. And she told me that too. When I was leaving, she said the technician is on his way. So as a result of that, I didn't report it as a have a complaint, but Helen from the RNY, Disability Rights New York, is aware of the problem because I told her my story.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Monica. I think one of the things that, excuse me, is concerning is the frequency with which this is happening. We're seeing these machines here. Monica's in Kings County, where I live in Brooklyn, and we're seeing these machines really breaking down over and over again now because they're so old. They're like 15 years old.
Yeah, and which machines? Was that the Dominion machine or was that
No,
the SNS machine?
is the um, Automark.
Oh, Automark. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So that gives you the ability of marking like you marking by hand. Okay.
Yeah, we actually have a really interesting comment from Virginia Martin. I'm seeing this. There should be a stencil provided which can help you keep your marks within the ovals.
See,
I've never heard of that. Had you heard of that, Monica?
see,
No,
wow.
no, we
See,
use a pen.
Virginia, how we get you back on the election commission? I ain't never heard that. That's amazing.
But there's a
She's,
stencil to
You're
mark
right.
on the ballot marking device.
Okay. Yeah, that's the Automark. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think that, the thing that's very concerning is how often the automarks now are breaking down. They're about 15 years old. And I think what is going to happen now is the city, after having let these machines really go much too long, is now going to be in a big rush to buy new ballot marking devices. And they're going to push for these ballot marking devices that we've been fighting from ES&S called the Express Vote Excel, which security experts are very apprehensive about. It has a very flawed design where the ballot actually goes back under the print head, where it could, change, add, or delete your votes, according to security experts. And we also know that that machine miscounted tens of thousands of votes in Pennsylvania. We know that it had about 27 pages of complaints from voters with disabilities. It's not the machine that we're interested in using, but we're worried that the New York City Board of Elections is going to use this as an excuse. They've waited so long to replace these machines, and now they're going to say, oh, well, we better just get these machines from from ES&S, the Express Vote XL, because those may be the ones that are, the fastest to get certified because they already started. So does that concern you, Monica, in terms of kind of the way they've handled this, where they've left it till the last minute?
Yes, because after it happened the second time, I concluded these machines are old and I don't think they can go much further. So the board will be pushed to probably just buying the first one that comes their way. And I know they're looking at the Express Vote XL. So who knows?
Yeah,
Right.
more importantly, you're gonna lose the functionality. We had a segment a couple of weeks ago where I expressed an appreciation for the Automark. I didn't know what they were until Lynn Bernstein, until I visited North Carolina. So this new machine is not going to function like the Automark. So you don't have the ability for, if your town goes to hand marked paper ballots, the ballot marking device is going to look different from what a hand marked paper ballot does. But the Automark gives you the ability for all votes to look the same. So that's definitely going to be a change that I was actually delighted to hear that you were happy with it. Typically, we don't hear that many stories of people who have preferred the ballot marking device over the hand marked paper ballot, but you were picking the one that does the same thing that the hand marked paper ballot does. So, so I was like, well, I wanted to know. I was like, wow, she likes it. That's pretty fascinating to hear. But
It
then,
takes a little longer. It
yeah,
takes a little longer, but surprisingly, this time it went very fast. I don't know. Maybe that was just too good to be true because
yeah,
I thought I would be out of there in 15 minutes because it
mhm,
really went fast. I didn't have any problem. I
yeah,
think maybe the last time why it took so long, I had to figure out doing ranked choice voting on the Automark, right?
In the
Because
primary.
for one of the races, it skipped. So it took a little while for me to figure that out. But this time it was quite straightforward.
Right.
So
yeah. Even Chris is saying in the comments that he thought the Automark was nice.
That's one of the things that we're pushing for also. We find over and over again that in the locations, the election officials are not testing each ballot marking device to make sure that it's working before the voters come in and try it. And we've actually had them say, we had a poll worker who went through the training, Michael Ring, who told us that they're not allowed to really actually vote on it or test it. So the only way they find out it's not working is when a voter actually comes in and it fails to work. That's a very bad setup. So we need to alter that protocol so that all of the ballot marking devices are tested in the location. And, there is, a procedure so that you make sure that no actual, fake votes are cast on it, but that these machines do get checked ahead of time. So we need to move on because we're out of time. But Monica, I really appreciate you coming here and sharing your story with us. It's something that we don't really get to hear that often
Yes,
about,
yeah,
somebody who's really willing to share the type of work that you do and how meaningful it is, the way that you're helping people, and then the frustrations that you yourself are experiencing when you're going and trying to just do, this basic thing, which is just cast your ballot. And it's something that Smart Elections has been focusing on consistently, is that we really need more attention to the lack of detail and the lack of support that we have in general for voters with disabilities in our election infrastructure, in the landscape. Would you agree that we just really need better training overall and more focus on these issues?
definitely we do. I was a bit surprised to see that the poll worker that day knew how to clear the jam. Usually they don't. And they were really very efficient, both of them.
But even with their
So that was
efficiency,
a plus.
okay, but you're still sitting there waiting 40 minutes and not
we
even being able to
gotta
vote
sit in private.
in the way that you wanted to vote. So it's not acceptable. And what we really appreciate is that you've come here and shared that story with us. And hopefully we can all be working going forward to try to improve the situation. So thank you so much for
Yes, it
Thanks,
was a
Ed.
pleasure. Thank
Keep on
you.
talking.
Okay,
Okay.
good night.
So that is a pretty good transition for us to just go out on a fundraising note.
I don't even have to talk about 2021.
Do you want to? Okay. But Benny, you said you guys didn't even have an election.
Right. See, it worked out.
Okay, but why don't you? I know
Fundraising.
one thing that you told me was in August of 2020, you said you did have concerns. Is that true?
Fundraising is where we are now.
Oh, so you're not gonna share your
No,
concerns?
it'll take up the time.
Can you tell us, like, quick, just a summary of what your concerns were in August of 2020?
August of 2020 was our first year trying the ES&S was the brand, but we were now doing the newer version of hand-marked paper ballots. And I looked at the totals for a race in particular where the hand-marked paper ballot was like light years different from the machine count. So that gave me a little heartburn. So one candidate comes in third place in the hand count, but comes in first place in the machine count. It's a little weird. It's like lightning didn't strike the same area like it did in the paper than it did on the machine.
Was this just a test run, or was this where you guys were actually voting?
Election, I was disturbed. I was complaining.
And what happened?
Nothing. I just voted no to certify.
So, because I thought that you guys were still on the DREs, but you're saying in some locations they are starting to use hand-marked paper ballots now?
No, because of COVID, the allowance of voting by mail caused us to have to be able to process that mail. So we had to get some tabulation equipment. So we actually ran 2 EMSs on election night. I don't think that was good at all. But anyway, fundraising.
I'm sorry, you just opened a can of worms. So I will let people know that this is Giving Tuesday, and we would very much appreciate your donations today. And throughout the rest of the year, we are actually trying to raise $120,000 by the end of the year. It's a huge sum of money, but it's actually what we believe we need to get the work done that we are planning to get done. In addition to the forums, the documentary series, we're developing an election curriculum so that people can take this material that we have put together for you week after week and have it in an organized, easily accessible way to for advocates and members of the public to use. And in addition to that, we are going to be doing public oversight in the midterms. The pilots that we did this year, we are planning to scale those up so that we can really do meaningful oversight. And how is all of that going to happen? It is going to happen because we are going to raise money.
Can I get a shout out? Right. So I would like to shout out the conservative women of Collierville. I hope you guys are listening. I got to address this group a couple of weeks ago, and they were packed to the walls, and they were really fired up. It was a delight to talk to that group. So if they're here, I told them to come here. Hopefully they're here tonight, and they brought some money too. So.
Oh, super. That would be great. So if you are able to donate, I'm going to put the link into the chat, and I'm going to show you how. We just have a brand new crowdsourcing campaign that we just launched today. So this is where you can donate, and we certainly hope that you will. It is super easy to find. If you lose that link, all you have to do is go to our website, smartelections.us, and I'm going to show you on my screen how you'll do that. You go to smartelections.us, which I have put up multiple times on the banners when we started the forum, smartelections.us, and I'll also put that into the chat. And when you are there, it is super easy. You're just going to click on donate, and it takes you right there. So I'm going to do it for you so you can and you can do it along with me. And one thing that I'm going to ask you to do, which would be really helpful, so many people have already made donations, and we're so very, very grateful. We've already raised over $15,000 since we started this push in October. So many people have donated, not once, but even multiple times. If you're here watching and you have donated, and I know some of you have, I would love it if you would put that into the chat and just say, I donated. I know I don't remember all of you who wanted public and who wanted private, so I'm hesitant to call you out. But please do put that into the chat. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts to help us do this very, very important work. So if you will put that into the chat that you donated, and perhaps that will encourage some other people to join you, and perhaps someone else who hasn't donated will put into the chat, I'm going to donate now. And you can just watch me and do it with me. So you're going to go to the smartelections.us. And when you arrive there, you are going to click on where it says donate. And that is going to take you immediately to the, right now, I have to switch browsers because I'm sharing this. But when you do it, that is going to take you immediately to the donate page for our new crowdsourcing that we just launched. And we put this up for $25,000, and I'll tell you what the logic is behind that. So here's our new crowdsourcing campaign, transforming U.S. elections. That is what we are doing, and our goal is $25,000 by the end of the year. And here's a quote that I'll read to you from somebody who has been involved with us. She said, "This organization is functioning at a higher level than any other I have seen to explore and understand the intricacies of both election law and the science of election technology. If you are going to invest in this critical arena, this is the place to invest." And all you have to do is to just click on that link where it says, the button at the top where it says donate. You're just going to click on that, and that is going to take you to the page where you can donate. And if you can make a small donation of $5, maybe it's monthly, so that actually adds up to $60 in a year, or maybe you really want to help us out and you have some resources and can make a $500 donation tonight. We would be grateful for whatever you feel comfortable donating. And this is so great. So many people, Laura, I donated last month, Chris Bystrop, I donated, Virginia Martin, I know you did, I donated, Royal donated multiple times, Mark Shaw donated. And these are all volunteers who are also doing other work, calling legislators and coming to meetings and finding out about things. They're doing so much. We are so very, very grateful. So if you can, if you haven't donated yet, we hope that you will take this opportunity to go to the website and make a donation. We really, really do need that. We have a plan. We have a vision. We're not just randomly throwing out this information at you. We are educating you so you will understand how the elections work. And then we are working internally, community by community. We're working in New York now. Bennie is there in Shelby County. And we are teaching advocates how to get involved, how to do public oversight, how to find out if the election results are accurate, and if they're not, what you can do to try to make sure they are. And by doing that, we are going to transform US elections. We can make elections here in the United States secure, fair, accessible, well-administered, and publicly verifiable. And that is, in fact, our goal. That is what we intend to do. So that's our forum. Bennie, I think next week we're going to have to follow up more with what happened in 2020 in Shelby County, because I have not heard you talk about that, and it sounds really concerning. So you said that the paper ballots did not match the machine counts?
No, the paper ballots, the way the totals were distributed among candidates was drastically different.
Oh, the distribution of votes.
Yeah, the winner went from third to first place.
I see. But now that also does sometimes have to do because Democrats were more voting by mail and Republicans were voting. No? Because in Shelby County, it's all Democrats.
It was a primary.
It was a primary, so it was very much all Democrats.
Yeah. So you can't, me being in third place and being in first place, that's a little random.
Very concerning. So that's Shelby County 2020. So that is the final point on your Smart Elections report card for the election. I want to encourage you to come to the upcoming events. So next Tuesday, that's the documentary Pay to Play. We're going to have John Ennis, the filmmaker, there. I told you about that film at the start of the show. And then the following week is our final best of, which I think is going to be fascinating. It's a perfect segue after this, because we are going to be putting together some of the highlights of when we've talked about audits throughout the last forum, all the past year. And we also are hopefully going to have a guest here who is going to talk about the risk limiting audit that took place in Virginia. And I know that everybody has really been really interested in that race in Virginia, where it was so close and the Republican governor won. That race did have a pilot risk limiting audit. We did have some information from an advocate about one thing he was concerned about. It's a little bit technical. The p-values apparently were not translated correctly, and it made him concerned that maybe other parts of the audit were not done correctly. So we have somebody on the ground from Virginia who's going to talk to us about the risk limiting audit in Virginia. That is on December 14th. So I know you're going to want to hear about that because, like I said, audits is where it's at. You can call them magic butterflies. You can call them audits, whatever you want to call them. That is what the next elections are going to be about, right, Bennie?
Yes, that is right.
All over the country. And you need to be in the game. You need to understand how they work and when they're working well and when they're not. And we are going to teach you all about that. Pat G donated. Awesome. Thank you so much. What a great note to go out on. So here, thank you so much. So keep in mind, this is what democracy looks like.
Good night, everybody.
We'll see you soon.